Hello everyone, before we start, make sure to like and subscribe to the channel and leave a comment with where you're from and what time you're watching. That way YouTube will keep showing you stories just like this one. Some stories are just rumours, others feel like they were meant to stay hidden. And then there are the ones that slip through the cracks, pieces of history that were buried for a reason and once unearthed begin to rot everything they touch. This one begins in West Virginia, deep in the woods that the locals call Cinder Hollow, a place where sunlight never seems to fully reach the ground and where smoke drifts from the earth even when there's no fire. For decades nobody went there, not hikers, not hunters, not even the police, because of one family, the Whitakers. Most of us have seen their faces online, twisted, deformed, the remnants of generations of isolation. The internet turned them into a spectacle, a curiosity. But what if I told you that what we saw wasn't natural, that the Whitakers weren't just born that way, they were made that way? In 2019, a former federal archivist named Edward Maines leaked a set of documents he found sealed in a restricted medical archive in Raleigh. The folder was labelled simply Whitaker 79B Project Hushlight. No author, no department, no date. Inside were 12 pages of field notes, 3 Polaroid photos of an underground chamber, and a blood-stained scrap of paper with one sentence written in red pencil. They can't forget what we made them remember. The handwriting was shaky, panicked, as if it was written by someone on the verge of losing their mind. Maines said the documents were connected to a series of human experiments in the Appalachian region between 1930 and 1955, involving sensory deprivation, forced breeding, and memory manipulation. The Whitakers, it seemed, weren't a failed family. They were he result of something that was never supposed to leave the lab. This is the story of Project Hushlight and the forgotten bloodline that became its living experiment. The first trace of Project Hushlight appears in a single memorandum dated April 12, 1933, during the Great Depression, when rural America was starving and desperate. It came from an office that technically didn't exist, the Bureau of Population Science, an experimental offshoot of the Public Health Service. Their mission was to study the limits of human adaptation under environmental and psychological distress. What that actually meant was that they were looking for people no one would miss. Small towns, isolated families, whole communities left behind by progress. Those were the laboratories. And somewhere between those ridges and coal towns, the Whitakers became their perfect subjects. The documents describe a group of men arriving in Cinder Hollow disguised as charity workers. They offered food, blankets, medicine. The Whitakers were poor, uneducated, and already isolated, so they accepted. The men recorded the family's bloodlines, took photographs, and collected specimens. At first it seemed harmless, until the disappearances began. 2 children, ages 7 and 9, vanished from the property. Locals were told they'd been sent to a boarding school for the gifted, but no such school ever existed. Then, over the next decade, strange sightings began in the hills, pale figures wandering at night, muttering in words no one understood. Hunters swore they saw flickers of light deep inside the mountain, like flashes from an electrical storm underground. By 1947, the Bureau's paper trail stopped. All that remained were whispers among local miners of a sealed tunnel beneath the Whitaker property, lined with machinery humming beneath the dirt. Decades later, an engineer surveying for a new coal line uncovered a concrete hatch hidden under collapsed timber. He described it as something military, but old. There was a steel door, and etched into the metal were 2 words barely legible through the rust: Hushlight. When he reported it, government agents arrived the next morning. The hatch was sealed. The image of that child haunted everyone who saw it. The features were unmistakable. The hollow cheeks, the twisted jawline, the unmistakable Whitaker look. But the eyes, those eyes weren't just blind, they looked erased, like the mind behind them had been wiped clean. According to the recovered notes, memory imprinting was the central experiment of Project Hushlight. The idea was to see if trauma could be encoded and transmitted through generations, not just passed down genetically, but psychologically absorbed by the next line of offspring. If fear could be inherited. The Bureau believed it could create what they called living recorders, human beings whose minds stored ancestral experiences like hard drives. They wanted to test whether memory could survive without language through instinct, gesture, and nightmare. And the Whitakers, they were perfect test subjects. The notes described controlled breeding cycles, environmental deprivation, and something called synthetic memory induction. The subjects were kept underground for months, in total darkness, while machines emitted sound frequencies meant to simulate voices, fragments of memories from people long dead. In one note, an unnamed doctor wrote, "The subjects began mimicking the voices. They knew names we never taught them. Some call out to those buried decades ago. This cannot be coincidence." By 1950, the project was officially terminated, but the Whitakers remained. When the government pulled out, they didn't clean up what they'd made. They abandoned it. The surviving family, after the leaked files surfaced online, amateur historians and investigators began retracing the Bureau's old roots. One of them, a local researcher named Sam Tolliver, went missing after following a set of GPS coordinates found scrawled in the margins of Mains's copy of the file. The coordinates led straight into the hills near Cinder Hollow. Locals told him to stay away, warning that the ground there wasn't safe. They said sometimes, if you walk through the woods at night, you can hear voices rising from under the soil, old recordings, garbled like radio static. Tolliver ignored them. 3 days later, his truck was found abandoned at the end of a logging road. Inside was his camera, still recording. The footage was shaky, but one frame stood out. A faint metallic hatch covered in vines. He'd found it, the entrance to Hushlight. The rest of the video is a blur of heavy breathing, clanging metal, and then silence. When police recovered the camera, the final 5 minutes were corrupted, filled with flickering light patterns that no lab could decode. Months later, Tolliver's girlfriend received a package in the mail with no return address. Inside was a single Polaroid. It showed the same hatch door, standing open. And beside it, written in charcoal, were the words, "They never turned it off." Experts analysing the leaked documents confirmed something chilling. The Hushlight. If you're still watching, you're already braver than most. Tell us in the comments, what would you have done if this was your bloodline? In 2022, an anonymous account uploaded a short clip to an obscure paranormal forum. It showed a figure wandering along the old Whitaker property at night, holding a flashlight. In the distance, a rhythmic hum could be heard, deep, mechanical, pulsing like a heartbeat. The caption read, "It's awake again." At first, everyone thought it was fake. But users began comparing the audio to historical recordings of 1950s electromagnetic equipment. The sound matched, frequency for frequency, the readings from Project Hushlight's machine logs. Then, a user claiming to be a descendant of the Whitakers commented something that froze the thread. "It's not a machine, it's them. The machine just kept them thinking." That account disappeared 48 hours later. Soon after, local hunters reported seeing lights moving through the trees, white, flickering, not like flashlights, but like lightning trapped in fog. One described hearing whispers. By this point, journalists, Reddit investigators, even retired agents were trying to track down what Hushlight truly was. One Freedom of Information request finally produced a clue. A redacted invoice from 1949 listing a payment to Eldridge Systems, a defense contractor specializing in neurological mapping. Hidden in the margins were the words Whitaker Containment. Eldridge's former headquarters was in Maryland. When a YouTuber named Michael Haddon explored the abandoned facility, he found crates stamped with the same code numbers from the Whitaker files. Inside were steel helmets lined with copper wiring, all labelled Memory Capture Field Use. Each helmet had a serial number, except one. The unnumbered helmet had a tag that simply said, R. Whitaker, original host. Researchers believe R. Whitaker refers to Ruth Whitaker, a matriarch rumoured to have gone missing in 1938. Locals said she walked into the mine and never came back. But if she was the first test subject, she's the original host. It means her mind might have been the foundation for every experiment afterward. In August 2024, a power company in Boone County reported a brief but massive electromagnetic surge, one strong enough to knock out communications across 3 counties for nearly 40 seconds. When maintenance teams traced the source, it pointed to a stretch of forest near Cinder Hollow, directly above where the Hushlight chamber was believed to be buried. No one went to investigate, not officially. But a satellite image taken that same night shows something strange. A ring of blue-white light pulsing under the ground, expanding, then fading to black. Since then, several residents of neighbouring towns have reported missing pets, strange noises, and, most disturbingly, dreams shared among strangers. Dreams of a woman whispering in the dark, repeating, "You carry me now." Experts still claim the Whitaker story is just a myth, a backwards rumour twisted by the internet. But when you read the files, when you hear the voices, when you look into those white